Welcome to the November 4th, 2013 meeting of the North Smithfield Town Council. We'll begin with a prayer and a pledge.
Lord, assist with thy Holy Spirit of counsel all those who are serving in positions of authority and responsibility.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, we do a roll call vote.
Ms. Alves? Here. Mr. McGee?
Here.
Mr. Yazbek?
Here.
Mr. Walensky?
Present.
Mr. Flaherty?
Here. Unless there's any objections in the council, I propose to move up item number 5C, new business, discussion by council vote or other action on resolution in support of Cesario application to Agricultural Land Preservation Commission. So Mrs. Cesario is with us this evening, sitting right over here, and has filed an application to the State Agricultural Lands Preservation Commission, and they have the development rights purchased for the property adjacent to her home, which has been farmed since 1902. This would allow, it would prevent any development of the property in the future. So why don't I just read the proposed resolution and we can have discussion. Whereas the town of North Smithfield is dedicated to the preservation of open space and working farmland within the community, consistent with the town-approved comprehensive community plan, and whereas Mrs. Elizabeth Cesario of 11 Pond House Road wishes to permanently preserve valuable local farmland that she owns and that has been actively farmed since 1902, and whereas these farmlands contribute to the economic vibrancy of North Smithfield, and whereas the Rhode Island Agricultural Land Preservation Commission oversees the preservation of agricultural lands through the state purchase of farmland development rights, and whereas purchasing development rights from farmers enables them to retain ownership of their property and protect their lands for agricultural use, while at the same time providing farmers with a financially competitive alternative to development, and whereas all program applications are reviewed and scored by the Agricultural Land Preservation Commission according to parcel size, soil quality, agricultural operation and viability, protection of water supplies and quality, open space, cultural and scenic features, flood protection, relative development pressure, and consistency with state and local plans. And whereas the funding for this program is provided through the State Open Space Bond, the Nature Conservancy, through grants from the Champlain Foundation, the United States Department of Agriculture, Farm and Rangelands Protection Program, and through the leveraging of land trust and municipal funds. And whereas Mrs. Cesario has filed an application for the state of Rhode Island to purchase the development rights to her farmland, now therefore be it resolved that the North Smithfield Town Council hereby expresses its enthusiastic support of Mrs. Cesario's application to the membership of the Rhode Island Agricultural Lands Preservation Commission. That's the resolution. I would entertain any questions, comments.
Present.
Mr. Yazbek.
I have to recuse myself.
Okay.
Mr. President,
Mr. Zawinski.
if I may, I'd like to publicly thank Ms. Cesario for this effort. This is something that's Ms. Cesario has been working on for years. And a couple of good points to be known. Ms. Cesario knows this property better than all, but it does abut the Audubon property. There'll be continuous open space there. The property across the street has the second dam that's built on the Woonasquatucket River, which is very instrumental in Woonasquatucket River health of the river itself. So there's things that Mrs. Cesario wants to do to keep this land in agricultural use, to keep it as open space. I applaud her efforts for doing these things. Thank you, Mrs. Cesario.
Anybody else have any questions? I might just ask if Mrs. Cesario would like to offer any words herself. You're welcome to if you'd like.
Do you want to say anything, or do you just want to go on?
I just wanted to say it's been a long journey for me, as Paul would state.
Sorry, but if you could just talk into this, so there you go. It's not much stretch on it, but
It's been a very long journey for me to get to this point. However, Paul was so right a few years ago, but it got until this time, when I found in my father's possession, in an old tin box, a 1902 tax book. And lo and behold, who was in there but Giovanni and Elisabetta Cesario, who purchased practically all of Pond House Road at that time. And I said, I've had time since I retired from my business to sit back and enjoy what the farm is like. And I can tell you that I see some of the strangest sights going through the cornfields and coming from the Audubon that adjoins my property. I watched a deer this spring actually put his front paws up the trunk of the little apple tree I had and started eating the apples. So I try to photograph them, but they're too fast for me. But I feel that the property that we own and that was passed on to me would be best served by keeping it as it is, agriculture. And I told most of the story in the little article about how it came to be. It was planted with apple trees at first by Giovanni himself. And in the 38 hurricane we had, it flattened every single one of them. And that was when my father went into the dairy business, and I have the barn that adjoins is close to my house. But anyway, my father went into the dairy business, and lo and behold, don't you know, that was at the time of Franklin Roosevelt. And he put a price impose on the milk. Well, that made my father so angry, and he was a true Democrat, and immediately changed over to being a Republican. That's how angry he was with it. But that was my dad. He was that way. But it's just amazing to me. Look back on these things, and they were truly such hard workers, and they believed so much in the land and everything. My father had a saying that always made sense to me. He said, the father is, the son is the father, and the mother is the earth. And it's so true to when you see that here's the son up there, and the mother yields the fruit. So there were so many things in retrospect that I remember about growing up there that I'm the only one that lived there. I'm the only one that was too busy doing other things even to get married, I guess. But anyway, I did lose a dear friend. But most of some of the details I gave to Sandy, who wrote that article. And I don't know what else I could say. It's just that it would please me and please the whole Cesario family, because looking up in this book, the Cesario family has paid taxes to this town for 111 years.
And we thank them.
And we thank them.
Well, we thank you for making this application, and I'm hopeful that everyone will support the application, and I think the town would love to see the property remain agriculture as well. So,
Well, Town Council President, Honorable Council, I am just so pleased that it has, I've had neighbors and people stopping by, my old high school friends calling, but it's probably impressed people that, and I know on my street we have so many walkers, and I've gotten to know a lot of them, but they'll come up and thank me for Thank you. so
Thank you.
much for that.
Thank you. Mr. President, if I may, I'd like to make a motion that the North Smithfield Town Council approve the resolution for local agriculture and land preservation application put forth by Ms. Elizabeth Cesario for the property on 11 Palm House Road. That is a motion.
And the resolution is,
The resolution that you read
right, okay.
to the record.
Motion's been made by Mr. Zelinski. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. McGee and Ms. Alves. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'd ask for a roll call vote.
Ms. Alves? Yes. Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Zelinski?
Yes.
Mr. Flaherty?
Yes, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Going back to the top of the agenda, we're at agenda item number 3, the North Smithfield Town Council sitting as the Board of License Commissioners. This is listed as discussion by council vote or other action on transfer of BV liquor license from MMCR Inc., doing business as Cucina, to Medavo LLC, doing business as Cucina, as well as a victualing license for Medavo LLC, doing business as Cucina. I think we'll do them one at a time. And Madam Clerk, everything seems to be in order.
The only thing we don't have a certificate of good standing yet, as far as the liquor license is concerned. And the health department has stated that they cannot do the inspection until the property is transferred, the license is transferred.
They can't do the inspection until the license is transferred.
The health inspection.
Is there anybody here on behalf of the applicant that would like to address the council?
Yes, if I may, the council president, members of the council, my name is Bruce Leach, I'm the attorney for the in this matter, Medavo LLC. At 900 Victory Highway, there was a restaurant doing business by the name of Cucina's. It's been there a number of years. It was previously owned by the Pinello Mara Group. Then when Mr. Mara died, the company was in receivership. It was bought by the Mara family. I believe last month in your October session, we had a hearing to straighten out that license transfer that hadn't been done completely, and now MMCR, which is the owner and operator of the restaurant, owns that license. They are in the process of selling that restaurant to my clients, Medavo LLC. It is an LLC comprised of 3 individuals. Mr. Wagner is a chef. He's been in the restaurant business a number of years, and he will be managing the kitchen. Another individual is Mark Sawinski. He's here. He has experience in the restaurant business. He will be managing the front of the house. And another owner is his brother, Dr. David Sawicki. The establishment will be run similar in the immediate future as to what it is now, with inside seating, and in the summertime or in the proper weather, outside seating. Eventually, the name may change or the menu may change, but for the foreseeable future, it's going to be operated the same way. The applicant attempted to get the inspection from the health department. I spoke to the health department myself, so did the MMCR, and they say their procedure nowadays is not to do the inspection until everything is in closing, in fact, takes place, and they request that any application be approved subject to that inspection. As far as the tax, I also spoke to 2 people at the tax department myself to request good standing certificates, also went to the transferee, and they said that they had problems recently, and they're not going to issue the certificates until the closing takes place, because even if they gave us one of good standing, because we're a new company, the town might accept it, and they don't want to do it. So we asked that be subject. And the last subject we ask is that because we are in the month of November, licenses have to be renewed. So MMCR will be renewing their license on November 18th when the renewals come up. But we would like our approval to be effective December 1, so that someone can't argue that we should have renewed even though we didn't close. So we're asking that our approval be as of December 1, so that they get their license renewal and we get our license in place after that date in December.
Thank you, Mr. Leach. A question for the solicitor. Do you see any concerns with approving the licenses subject to the health department inspection and the certificate of good standing?
Well, I would prefer them to be here, but if there's a new procedure in place that won't allow it to happen until after the closing, then I don't necessarily have a problem with the subject to, but I don't know, when the division of taxation, I don't know why they wouldn't issue a certificate of good standing at this point, but again, if you're saying that they won't until the closing, then
We had a
we're in a
conference,
catch-22.
out in catch-22, we had a conference call with Mr. Sawicki and myself on the phone with the Division of Taxation, and then the manager of the department called subsequently, and they both said that call them up, they'll send the thing, you don't get your license until it's a condition, so if you can't.
Conceptually, I don't see any problem with us doing it subject to.
Who's going to approve it, though? So it's subject to,
if we can get that, then, Mr.
All right.
Stacy. In the past, if you recall, when a liquor transfer or reissuance of license was done, we have seen liquor vendors, distributors come in and hold the process up because of owed monies. So if the license is going to transfer from another entity to your entity, hopefully they have no outstanding bills, because that has held it up in the past. And that has always been one of the issues that we've faced before, is not good standing with the Secretary of State, but good standing with vendors. I don't know how it's gonna play in here. I'm sure the amounts owed have been paid. I'm going to assume that. That is in the question itself, because we've seen distributors come up at the last minute. So if we make this contingent, if we make this subject to, and we grant the right to the administrator to sign off once all of the I's have been dotted and the T's have been crossed, we've seen it pop up before. So that's one issue, so we'd have to be looking for that in case it does pop up. I have no problem. My vote would be to authorize you to sign off once those things are done, and if there is no liquor distributor coming up, well then, the window of opportunity for them has come and gone. The other piece this evening, and I believe we addressed it with the town solicitor, is that on the affidavit, Volker Wagner signed that I am the owner-manager of the above-named business. There was no above-named business, but we wrote it in, and I believe Mr. Nowicki signed it. Is that correct, sir?
Yes.
As a principal, I'm comfortable with that. Solicitor, are you comfortable with that? The writing what he did? I have no problem.
Mr. President,
Mr. Yaga?
just for the solicitor, there's an edification in the past, when these things have come up over the last 10 years, it usually would be proof provided to the clerk, and then the clerk would issue. And she is the best clerk in the state, so she'll be right on top.
Mr. Leach, you said there was the health inspection, there was the certificate of good standing, was there a third one?
Yeah, December 1, I'd like it to be effective so that there's no ambiguity as to whether or not we're getting it now and have to renew.
Is that, yes, Mr. McGee?
Excuse me, on the health inspector, why couldn't you have the Board of Health in there? Tell me why they wouldn't come in.
I spoke to the Board of Health. Stephen, I don't know his last name, do you know Stephen's last name? Peterson, something like that?
Gartland?
Okay. The area director, Mr. Zawicki, independently filed the application and spoke to the director. If I understand the clerk's office, Connie was advised by MMCR that they spoke to the inspector. And the inspector has said that they're short-staffed, they inspect a lot of places that don't close, and that they're not going to inspect until they have to close, and that they don't understand why the town council can't make it subject to, because a license isn't going to be granted until we actually have that piece of paper. So at that point in time, we explained it to the town, they advised us to come tonight, the court, as the expression has already been used in the catch-22 situation, and we're asking the deference of the town to be able to do it that way, because it's out of our control. You can't make them come.
Because in the past, we always had good standing was all set, everything's all set. We don't have good standing, we don't have health, we don't have anything. This just seems odd. This has never happened before.
When you say you don't have anything, you have your town inspections, and you have all the rest of the application, you have two things that we can't control. They're out of my control.
And why wasn't the good standard? Why couldn't you get good
Because the
standing?
Division of Taxation doesn't want to issue it And as far as they're concerned, no disrespect to your council, but they have said most of these towns grant them subject to and rely upon the clerk to see, and the license isn't in fact tendered to us until, so they were a little bit surprised by our argument that we had to have it for today's meeting.
Because that's the way we always did it.
Mr. President,
Yeah.
being in the business, I don't doubt the representations from the attorney in regards to the tax division. I deal with them every day, that's why my hair's short. On that, I'll make a motion that, subject to the applicant providing to the town clerk the certificate of good standing when available from the Rhode Island Division of Taxation, and the certificate of inspection as issued by the Rhode Island Board of Health, that the liquor license be transferred with an effective date of December 1st, 2013.
Motion by Mr. Yazbek, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Zelinski, is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'd ask for a roll call vote.
Ms. Alves? Yes. Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Yazbek?
Yes.
Mr. Zelinski?
Yes.
Mr. Flaherty?
Yes, motion carries, congratulations.
So we
Question
can
for the
close-
attorney on the next one.
Sorry, so we can close any time after December 1.
The victualling license, is that also, do you also want that as of December 1st?
Yeah, because we're not going to require it
All
before.
right, motion to approve the victualling license for December 1st or at the closing shortly thereafter to coincide with the liquor license transfer.
Motion by Mr. Yazbek, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Zelinski, is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote please.
Ms. Alves? Yes. Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Yazbek?
Yes.
Mr. Zelinski?
Yes.
Mr. Flaherty?
Yes, motion carries.
Welcome to North Smithfield, gentlemen.
All right, well, thank you very much for your consideration this evening and the proud day.
We do have a planned executive session on the agenda. I was expecting that we would do that at approximately 7:30. I think that these next two items we can easily get through. So I'm going to move on to item number 4, old business. A, discussion by council vote or other action on amendment of town budget. I know that it says Mrs. McDonald, but I know that she's away.
Well, we can, sure, thank you. We can do one of two things. We can table it until Mrs. McDonald will be here. She's on vacation, she'll be back Thursday. So for the next meeting, we can do this, or, I don't know if you had a chance to read it. I could quickly read it it was basically what we were looking at was a problem with the budget in that it, where it goes. There were some issues relating to OPEB funding, and if I can get this open. Actually, I can.
Contingency, animal control, and
Yep.
employee benefits.
Can I just ask a theoretical question?
Yes?
If I understand this correctly, there are some discrepancies between what was approved by council as evidenced by the clerk's minutes
Right,
and what made it to the Excel spreadsheet, and
exactly.
the totals might be off.
The totals might be off, but it is a balanced budget.
Right, so do you really need council action other than the fact that it's already part of the record? I think it's just a matter of the administration notifying us that the total approved budget has changed after review of the record.
Right, well, I wanted to make sure, that's why I asked Mrs. McDonald to provide you with a memo to that effect, so you know exactly where there were discrepancies of $25,000 in the OPEB and whatnot. So really, there isn't any change to bottom line, it's really just that there'll be an adjustment made if, you know.
Well, a change of $23,975.
Mhm. But just to be very transparent and have it ready to the
No,
record.
don't get me wrong, we appreciate the notification, but I think the record's the record, so I don't know, because I don't know that there's a provision where we can amend the budget until the fourth quarter by the
Right.
charter. So I'd rather not get into a charter discussion.
And just,
I think it's admirable that we're notified of these issues, because normally it is the fourth quarter. And then whatever you need to do to correct the problem in the fourth quarter, we can handle it in that. So I'll make a motion to receive and place on file.
Motion by Mr. Yazbek to receive and place on file the memo from the town finance director, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Alves, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is discussion by council vote or other action on appointments to boards and commissions. Number 1, redevelopment agency, which is a town council appointment for a 5-year term that expires on December 1st, 2015.
Mr. President,
Mr.
I'd
Fulenski.
like to nominate Mr. Frederick A. Bellows, Rick Bellows, for the position of redevelopment agency for that 5-year term.
Motion's been, nomination's been made, and are there, I guess I'd do a second first, right? Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Alves and Councilor Yazbek. Mr. Bellows?
Good evening. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
I'm honored and privileged to be able to give back to my community.
Very good, thank you. We were all provided with a copy of your resume, and I, for one, am very happy to support your candidacy. And I don't know if anybody else had any questions? Did you have any questions?
Well, I just have a statement. When Mrs. Zelensky approached me about the appointment last meeting when I came to ask some questions about something that would affect my mom's property, I was honored. And you have a unique opportunity with my experience and background. I grew up in a family business. My parents were in business for 37 years. My mom's still in that business, and my father passed away a few years ago. But growing up in a family business and looking at what you're trying to get accomplished with that particular parcel and in that particular area, and also working at the corporate level, I have a unique blend of both experiences. What businesses may be looking for, how they think about things, how they operate. And it would be my honor to be able to contribute and collaborate some ideas. I have a unique background with the military, undergraduate degrees in finance, my master's degree is in marketing, and I also have a real estate broker's license from the state of Rhode Island. It's been in effect since 2009. So hopefully I can incorporate all those things in helping getting some opportunities executed upon and seeing if we can get some additional monies into the town. So thank you very much. You have any questions for me?
Now, we call you,
Can we
call
call
you Rick?
Yeah, well, Rick is, what happens is I'm the third, so when people get, my grandfather lived with my father after he retired from McDonnell Douglas. So when everybody was around, being the third, when Fred was called, everybody kind of turned around. So it was a nickname that was applied a few years ago, and my father used to say to me, it's tough to be your Fred with biceps, right? So I said, yeah, Rick would be fine. But it's something I use in my professional life. My grandfather, when he heard the nickname, kind of raised an eyebrow, and I said, it's okay, Grandpa, I signed everything Frederick. So he was happy.
Well, thank you for your willingness to serve.
Sure.
You've clearly got the right credentials for this, and it's just terrific when people do step forward, because this is all a volunteer thing, and so it's great when people step forward to make a contribution to the community.
It would be my honor to give back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's also nice to meet you before we vote and get to know you a little and
Sure.
feel better about the nominee than just voting on those people.
Yep, just a
You
name.
know.
Yeah, understood. We've been here since 1986. So.
Terrific. So we have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. We've had discussion. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'd ask for a roll call vote.
Ms. Alves? Yes. Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Yazbek?
Yes.
Mr. Zelinski?
Yes.
Mr. Flaherty?
Yes. Congratulations.
Thank
Welcome.
you very much.
The next item is to the Personnel Board, appointment by the town administrator for a 3-year term that expires December 1st, 2014.
Okay, actually, I had asked Mrs. Alves also if she would review this, because Mary Silva is the person that's looking to get into that. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm juvenile hearing board. Okay, sorry. Nope. I have nothing for that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to number 3, which is coordinator for
I think we're so anxious to fill the
I
positions.
know, I'm so excited.
coordinator for the Juvenile Hearing Board.
Mr. President,
Ms. Alves.
I'd like to nominate Mary Silva as coordinator for Juvenile Hearing Board.
There's a nomination for Mary Silva for the coordinator of the Juvenile Hearing Board. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Zulinski. Any discussion? We've also had Ms. Silva's resume as well, and she seems to be very well experienced for this position.
Very much so. She's very anxious to begin.
Okay, there's been a motion, it's been seconded, we've had discussion. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'd ask for a roll call vote.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Yazba?
Yes.
Mr. Zelinski?
Yes.
Mr. Flaherty?
Yes. The next item is Sewer Commission, appointment by the Town Council for, there's a 1 5-year term that expires December 1st, 2016. Are there any nominations? Hearing none, I'll move on. I believe that this next one, number 5, is on here incorrectly because we've already filled that position. That was the Historic District Commission. So I'll move on to 6, the Economic Development Commission, which is appointed by the Town Administrator with Town Council approval. Are there any nominations?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Mr. Scott Lenz of 474 Buxton Street, and he is also here, and I'll let him speak on his own behalf.
Welcome.
I'm a brand new resident of North Smithfield, just moved in the beginning of this year, and just escaped from Woonsocket, matter of fact, 6 days ago. We closed on our house there. So my background is that I'm an engineer. I worked in Saudi Arabia for 31 years, and as I said in my little letter that I sent to for my application, is that I'm really interested in seeing a vibrant economy here, and I know that a vibrant economy is required to keep the town on the go, and I just left one that's really going down the tube, so it's looking at what's going on and seeing that it's important to keep this town really on solid footing. I'm interested in looking at how things work, and even more importantly, measuring how things have worked. And I'll be very interested in seeing some of the work that the committees have done before, and see what they've done, how's it worked, how can we improve on that. I've been reading some of the documentation, the minutes, especially the Development Commission the Development Agency for Branch Village, and they've done a tremendous amount of work. And it looks like there's a lot of work on implementing those ideas. And so the two, the commission, the agency and the commission working together, hopefully we can bring some of those things to fruition.
One of the nice advantages is that starting, I think it was just about 6 months ago, the Redevelopment Agency and the Economic Development Commission started meeting jointly. There is a good reason to have both, because one has some statutory powers that are only given to a redevelopment agency, so that's why you need to have both. But I think that there's some overlap in membership as well, so it just makes good sense that they're meeting together. So you and Rick will get to know each other well.
Yep.
And thank you for your willingness to serve.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Lentz?
Oh, yes.
May I call you Scott?
Sure.
Scott, did you not come before council several years back? You were on a trip home from Saudi Arabia and you spoke about some issues in town?
No, somebody else. No,
Well, it must be the folks that go to Saudi Arabia that take a vested interest in us.
I guess so. No.
Okay.
No, I attended a meeting here a couple of months ago, and that was the first time that I ever came to a meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right, thank you.
So is there a motion to approve the town administrator's appointment of Mr. Lentz to the Economic Development Commission?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Yazbek. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. McGee and Mr. Zelinski. Is there any discussion, further discussion? Hearing none, I'd ask for a roll call vote.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Yazba?
Yes.
Mr. Zelinski?
Yes.
Mr. Flaherty?
Yes. Congratulations, and thank you. It's wonderful to see these positions getting filled. I know we've had them on the agenda for a while, and it's definitely been worth the wait. So it is just a little past 7:30, so unless there's any objection at this time, I would ask that we go into executive session according to Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5A, 2 sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation, or work sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation. There's 5 items. Number 1 is Kazarowski versus Town of North Smithfield. Number 2 is Narragansett Improvement, AL v. Jill Gemma, AL. Number 3 is Narragansett Improvement, AL versus Vincent Marcantonio, AL. Number 4, Town of North Smithfield versus Narragansett Improvement Company, AL. Number 5, update on contract negotiations with Rhode Island Council 94, AFSCME, AFL-CIO. Is there a motion to go into executive session? Moved by Mr. Zelinski. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Al. discussion? If there's all in favor, or roll call? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. L?
Yes.
Vicki?
Yes.
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 Mr. Zalinski?
Yes.
Mr. Cesario?
Yes.